Please be seated. In the name of the main character, and of his harem, and of the holy waifu, Kawaii Desu. This is a Radical Rand podcast.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the illustrious Church of Weeb podcast. I am Adam, aka CSRadical here, and we are going to go through episodes 7 to 9, or at least as we like to call it here, the 3/4 mark of the season, where we are now just one more step away from the end to a good number of shows and the continuation of a few others. So, it hasn't been another good 3 weeks, you bet your ass it has. No show has faltered, no show has been dropped, and it seems like we're going to go into what honestly might be one of the better ends to an anime season than I've had in a long time, because, like I said, as I've looked at all of my shows, only one of them has really not been everything I'd like it to be, and so many others have been surprising, so many others have far exceeded my expectations, and you know, I can't ask for much more, especially as we start to head into the winter where depression is a much easier thing to happen when you are the kind of guy like me who absolutely despises the cold and the snow. So, without further ado, we will start right at the very top of the order, that being Ahiru no Sora, episodes 7 to 9. The continuation of what is going to be a much longer series has been nothing short of fantastic. We now have a new guy in Kite, who has definitely added a lot more to this ragtag group of misfits, as we have already seen before. The biggest thing that, you know, we keep seemingly finding is that they are really, like, they're not going out of their way to push it, but they're really trying to, like, push a Madoka Sora ship here. And it seems pretty obvious in the end, but it's also one of those things that, you know, you have to also take into account that so many anime tries to push the love interest and then just pulls the rug from under you, being like, well, no, he's not interested, or one of them's not interested. And I fully expect that at some point Sora is just going to be like, sorry, I don't have time. Like, Madoka's finally going to be like, you know, I'm really into you, and I'd like to be more than just, you know, friends on the court, and Sora be like, sorry, I only have one thing I can look at. I'm holding out for something as stupid as that, because I feel like I get disappointed in that way continuously when it comes to romantic relationships building in anime. It always usually ends to some bullshit, or, you know, depending on the show, a person getting killed off. But you gotta elicit emotion somehow, I guess. But in this case, I don't think anybody's gonna get killed off in a basketball anime, except for Sora's mom, who the more I'm convinced as this anime goes forward, and they keep showing her in the hospital, especially now that this team is starting to come together to make a push for the, what do they call it? I can't remember what they actually call the end tournament that they're trying to go after here. I think it's like the Inter-Finals National, whatever the fuck it's called. But it makes it more obvious to me that she's going to die before this tournament's actually here. I'm positive at this point that Sora's mom will pass away before they get to the tournament. And I figure it might even be as much as they win their last game and he's all excited to go tell her and she's dead. Like, she dies literally during that game. Something like that. So, you know, it's something that I'm not looking forward to, because I can see it coming from a mile away. But, you know, you always hold out hope that the show will pull a fast one on you and not do the obvious thing that so many anime tries to do, because, like I've said, dead parents are a thing in anime that is a coin flip away. And more often than not, if you're going to ask me to put money down, I'm going to put money down on the side that lands with a parent dying. So, unfortunately, that's something that I have to think about, but for the time being, I'm still enjoying every single thing they're doing. I was a little bit weirded out during the early portions of Kite's arc here, where obviously in order to keep the team alive, they can't be getting into fights, so Momoharu being so apologetic, it didn't fit. I figured they're trying to be like, well, you know, they're really trying to keep this team together now. I'm like, since when? There's still a bunch of punks. Like, I don't understand how in a couple of days he's gone from never giving a shit to all of a sudden this is the greatest thing he's ever put his mind towards. I still feel like he's got to have a little bit of that punk in him, and yet he's immediately being like, nope, we have to be apologizing to everything now, and it seems like it's kind of lost a bit of the luster on him, and especially when he still isn't playing very well. He needs to up his game, I think, and hopefully pretty soon we get that. At the same time, Sora is also becoming less and less valuable as we see so many more people get into the fray. I mean, Momoharu is a defensive juggernaut. Oh my god, why am I blanking on the Afro guy's name? But you know who I'm talking about if you watch the show. He's basically like a master tactician on the court, and now here's Kite, who is so incredibly well put together in terms of being able to dribble the ball like nobody can touch him. And here's Sora, who's just like, yeah, he can make shots, but all they got to do is just block him and they can't do anything. So it's one of those weird things where like Sora's actually becoming less and less important to the team, and he might even more just be like the guy in the background, which is kind of an interesting look at it. Otherwise, I mean, a little bit of funny stuff by the end of this 3-episode run. Obviously, Sora trying to save the situation with Kite, going as far as following the teacher even to the bathroom to try and get him to rescind the suspension or expulsion, I believe, to Kite in this. And then somehow they just managed to convince him because, it was never his fault. He was just defending himself. But, he makes the claim that, I'll take us all the way to the national championships. And even the teacher's like, well, I'm not still going to change it. And then all of a sudden the school president happens to just be in the washroom also taking a shit in there. And he's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, fine. I'll get rid of the expulsion now. It's like, what? Like, it's almost dumb. And this is probably one of the few moments in the show so far that I've been like, okay, guys, like, you maybe shouldn't have put yourself into a corner so soon and having to rescind that decision with some really dumb exposition, which just, to me, didn't actually work. But it was pretty funny to see that he came back to the court and he's already dating the girl that he knocked over earlier in like a few episodes prior. So I thought that was funny. But I mean, otherwise, like I said, this show is basically just continuing to run how it's running. Like, I still am very happy with it. I'm hoping they at least start getting into some games now because, there's only so many character arcs you can have before it's like, all right, well, they got to play at some point, right? We can't just talk about them getting better. They have to at least show at some point they can win a game. And as we head into what the last 3 episodes of this season is, although this show I think is continuing another full season after, it's one of those things where they kind of got to start putting the pedal down a little bit because otherwise, what kind of show is this now? A show that's trying to concentrate on basketball and then not play basketball is a little irritating, to say the least. So next up, Ascendance of a Bookworm. This show is, good lord, if Dr. Stone was not running on all cylinders like it is right now, this show would be number 1, but it is being a very, very wonderful number 2. There are a lot of questions that are now coming into mind here, and the longer that the show goes on, especially with them talking about the devouring, which is the feverish disease that Mine has, we assume she had before. I can't remember the actual girl's name who has now inhabited Mine's body, but I'm assuming that this disease has already been within her before, and now the devouring has now put Mine into this situation as it currently stands, and I keep wondering if the way the series is going to run is that if she's going to die by the end of the series. And you wonder even further because they tell you that no kid usually makes it past 10 or 12. I can't remember which number it was. It was definitely one of those two. And sure, like, they can make this thing go on for a few years in terms of the games, or in terms of the anime's setting, but at the same time, they keep playing it like, as soon as Mine's got nothing to live for, like, she'll just give up and that's it. And you have to wonder if anything can be brought in to kind of just destroy that and just send her into a frenzy. And with 3 episodes left, you have to wonder if something is going to happen because, last 3 episodes of an anime, you got to rally up the drama even when it's not necessary. And I think that might be a case where this comes into play. It's happened several times already that Mine has been very close. she mentions, I think it was episode 9, that when her mother used the wood carvings that she made up to draw on into the fire, like that was like her one big success, and it failed anyway, and that kind of drew her out. Obviously, Lutsu, now understanding that mine is not actually mine, put a bit of an opportunity there for her to falter, but that stayed okay. Lutz kind of admitted to himself that, you know, more of his memories of mine have to do with this new version, not the original. So it's not really his call whether or not mine should be staying or not. It should be up to the family, and the family somehow hasn't figured it out, or at least we haven't seen any of them talk about it. I figure the sister's going to be the first one, if that does come into play. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know. I mean, mom looks like she's smart enough to figure it out, but she seems to be busy. Dad's happy to have his little girl around, so I don't know. Maybe they're just being blind to it, but you figure at some point it's got to come into play. That episode 2, by the way, with Lutz actually understanding that mine is not who she says she is, that episode went by real fast. I didn't even pay attention to the fact that the show was about to end when it did. I thought we were only at the halfway mark. I just lost all track of time there. So that was very good. The last episode, you know, we finally get some work done, you know. Not to mention that she's able to get her first taste of cash. She makes another hairpin for the Merchant Guild's owner, and she tries to she almost gets hired by him, and then his daughter also tries her ass off to do the same thing, and similar pitch attempts just do not work. She does also have the chance to get some reading in finally, which is a major plus to her, and it definitely starts to lean the show in a direction of, okay, she's starting to finally have some success here, and, you know, at least it offers the chance that she might be able to hang in there and maybe succeed at what she needs to do, which is honestly to be a bookkeeper, a librarian, whatever she may want to be. The last thing we end with, though, is that Frida, which is the daughter of the Merchant Guild owner, is that she also has a devouring, and says that basically motivation is what's keeping a lot of these kids alive who have the disease. And it leads again to this tease that, hey, you know, the only way the mind's going to really survive is she's going to have to stay motivated. And what happens if something serious goes wrong? Like, you never know. One of the parents passes away. Even the sister passes away. Lutz even could pass away. Or he just gets sick of what he's doing. Or something happens with the merchant and she can't get work anymore. Or she finally succeeds in making a book, but the townspeople, like, get mad about it. Or, like, there are so many different directions it could go into, but you got to figure that either the next episode, being episode 10 or episode 11, one of the two has to set it in stone that there's going to be something major that happens that throws her motivation dead. Absolutely done. Dead in the water, and it just makes it so possible that she could fade away for real this time. But otherwise, it's still the same show that I've been really enjoying. It's just very, very cheesy, which I always appreciate. Very adorable, and the way they're telling the story is so slow and calm, and it's not asking you to remember a bunch of shit. It's just an easy watch, and when there's so many other shows that are either really over the top or a lot of information being thrown at you, like, say, with Dr. Stone, it's nice to have something like this show to offset that. So next up, didn't I say to make my abilities average in the next life? So more along the lines of this show was a lot of, not really necessarily, I guess kind of character arc to Mavis a little bit, but for the most part, I mean, Pauline has a little bit in here, but for the most part, this is just fun stuff. So episode 7 was the swimsuit episode. It had to happen eventually. Reina had a little bit of a moment in that episode where she went from broody emo girl to massively girly girl in an accessory shop. That was kind of funny. But yeah, like I said, swimsuit episode has to happen. Mile had to get swimsuits ready. Of course, she was more than happy to, because the weeb in her just went on fire. Although you think if she was going to have the inner weeb in her, she would have given everybody some better swimsuits because they were kind of shitty. I mean, Reina's was way too plain and really didn't accentuate anything. She basically just made like a Gothic Lolita one piece. It was boring. Pauline was just plain as shit because they're just like, look, you got big tits. You don't actually need anything stylish, and strongly disagree with that opinion. And then Mile is just basic. So Mavis did win that only because everybody else was so boring, and Mavis being looking a little more feminine for once obviously gives her a bit of an advantage. That episode was fine. It's a standard fan service episode. You don't expect much. I do love the fact that they live in a world where swimsuits don't exist, so that's basically like wearing underwear in public, so everybody freaks out at that. So I thought that was funny. Otherwise, the real gist, or the real best parts of this 3-episode run was episode 8, where you have, albeit a very tasteless forced marriage storyline there with Pauline, and eventually working it into Mavis's family because it's one of her brothers that's supposed to be marrying. Clearly, by the end of it, Mavis's dad really understood that something was going on here the entire time, so he took advantage of that moment to take care of some stuff. Pauline does evolve a little bit. She finally gets her revenge on her family for basically killing off her father and sending her family into absolute ruin. Mavis also gets a bit of a evolution herself as she really stands up to her father, and even Mile does so as well. It was a really silly episode too, because Mile's idea of getting into Pauline's house without being detected was just to wear like bandit masks. That was it. Everything else didn't change. So you can tell she's dumb as fuck, as it's been pretty obvious several times when she can't come up with a half-decent excuse for why she's really good at certain things. But the whole bit with Mavis and her dad was really entertaining, especially when they finally left and you found out the dad's just like she's clearly a daddy's little girl and to him, and he just balls himself every time that he doesn't get his way. That was very entertaining. The last episode was also quite fun just because of the Wyvern backstory. The entire episode was so plain at the time. Like, I'm just thinking like, okay, they're just fighting a Wyvern. Miles doing stupid shit to try to kill it, but it's not working. And then when they finally capture it, it turns out that this Wyvern has been like a pet of some guy, and the backstory is so fucking stupid. And by the end of it, you're just giggling because it's so dumb. Like, it's the funny kind of dumb. It's just, it takes everything that you figure is going to happen, flips it upside down, and then just starts beating it like a dead horse. And you're just like, what the fuck is going on? And again, that's what the show has kind of amounted to, where generally speaking, like, this show doesn't really offer you that much. Hell, it doesn't even really offer that much in the fan service department. I mean, the art direction is not actually that high quality for the kind of fan service that you're just seeing in a lot of other shows. So what this show just ends up doing is leaning a little bit more in the veins of comedy to kind of push things along, while the fan service still does exist, but just isn't quite pushing the quality in the same way that other shows can do. In, say, a show like High School Prodigies, which we'll get to shortly. But in this case, the show's running by its comedy more often than not, and it's hanging in there. It's definitely not the best show of all the harem show, or not harem shows. Well, I guess all the cute girls doing cute things sort of stuff. Any show that's going the fan service route in general, it's not even remotely close to being the top one, but it's still doing just fine. And when you have a season of shows where you're watching like about 10 of them, not every single one of them has to be a 9 or a 10 out of 10. It's okay to have a few 7s here and there, and this is certainly a very, very solid 7. And you can't ask for much when it comes to moe shows. They're not always... Moe shows are hit and miss. Like, they're usually pretty good with me, but they're either just okay good or they're really good. Like, there's not like a middle ground. They're either 7s or they're like 9s. Like, it's very rare to have an 8 even in that, because to find that level of quality, usually they put more than they would just to go up 1 point, because the story is either really good or the comedy is just unbelievable. So there's always that too. So next up, Dr. Stone. I'm only doing 2 episodes here. I completely messed around with the episode counts here, so I was already ahead. So this is only 20 and 21. 22 to 24 will obviously be in the last episode. So this one was pretty straightforward. It's just preparation for the inevitable end of this season with their battle with Tsukasa, where they're going to need cell phones, and I imagine that is coming soon. I would even imagine that by the end of episode 22, which is already out and I haven't seen yet, that's going to be what happens, is they're going to finish it then. But there's some real runs moving here. They are able to make wire, especially after having a lot of fun making cotton freaking candy, which was fun as shit to watch. Chrome having a breakthrough himself as well with the water-powered gears. That ends up being a big deal. And then just celebrating Christmas together, Suika finally becoming useful, finding tungsten, which is a huge plus for Senku and company. But for the most part, like, these are basically 2 filler episodes. Like, nothing pretty major happens here. There's no real character arc changing. I mean, people are just becoming a little bit more useful, but they put a little bit of a ploy in there with the spy girl that Tsukasa side has watching over them by giving her some cotton candy. So it seems like they're starting to play a little bit of maybe her changing sides. Seems like the entire goal, I guess, with Senku is to slowly convert everybody, and maybe Tsukasa is one of the few that just doesn't. Maybe Spear Guy is just not one to be able to turn over, but they finally do mention that oh my god, why am I forgetting I always forget the fucking guy's name. It's not, whatever. It's not, I think it's Taiju. But those two are very much alive and well. Even with Tsukasa now being aware that Senku is alive, he's not going to tip his hand and can capture them because he knows that they can be useful at some point if they need to keep Senku at bay. And I figure in these last 3 episodes that's going to come into play, whether he has like Yuzura in a potential death situation or even Taiju. Like, it still makes me wonder if one of them are going to die, because I mean, they spent so much time not being on the show that anticipation of seeing them again leaves the door open for them to be like, all right, here they finally are and they're dead. Just to really throw that off. And it's very possible. It is actually quite possible that could happen. Especially, it becomes more prevalent to me that the possibility is actually pretty high, because initially everybody was getting really behind, assuming I'm getting the name right, Taiju here, because he's such a lovable idiot. But if he really was that character that they wanted to really push and make that lovable character, they keep showing him. And in all of these episodes, we have not seen them. We have not heard them speak. And it makes you wonder, if you're going to spend 15 to 20 episodes not showing them, not having them speak, not having them do anything of any note, if you're using them as potential emotional deaths. So that possibility is now very open. But otherwise, I expect that these last 3 episodes are going to make or break the show in terms of being one of the few 10 out of 10s I ever give to anime. And it's a very rare thing with me. You gotta be hella good to get that rating, and they're very much primed to do it. But with any show, to be able to get that 10, you have to end on a hell of a good note. And if they fail, it goes to a 9, and it's just another missed opportunity. I don't know if the show can do anything that can drive it further back, but you never know. I mean, I thought at one point there was a show called Big Order that I thought was going to be one of my favorite shows of the year, and in the last few episodes, they shit a brick, and I dropped it with 1 episode to go because I was that upset at it. I don't think the show will lean in that direction, but you always leave the possibility open. And in this case, I suspect that I'm going to be more than happy with the show's ending of episode 24, but I said it before at the very beginning when I started reviewing the show, that because it's a show that Crunchyroll is pushing down our throats, that I have to leave a door open for disappointment, because generally speaking, that's what these shows do. Because whatever the masses think is a great show, I generally do not get behind. And it has nothing to do with like a hipster sort of outlook on things. It's more along the lines of what seems to really tickle the fancies of the mainstream anime audience doesn't hit me very often. You know, it's very rare. Erased is one of the very few that majority of people really loved, and I still love too. A lot of the shows that I like, and I know ahead of time that a lot of the shows that I'm talking about here are shows that people don't watch because it's beneath them. Like, obviously, a lot of the fan service stuff. I get that. But, you know, it's why it means so much more when I tell you guys that a show like Dr. Stone, which is being pushed really hard by Crunchyroll, by anime fans alike, is still a fantastic show. That should say a lot for that show's quality. So anyways, moving on, Granblue Fantasy, so episodes 6 to 8, since again they fell behind because they needed to do a Jita episode, which wasn't even good. This whole arc with the ghost ship has been okay at best. I was right on the money that the new girl that we saw, Fairy, had something to do with Drong. I was happy to see Sturman and him and company back, Orkis now being a normal thing. So episode 7 was basically a lolly adventure because you had Eolyria and Orkis all together doing nothing really. And basically the entire arc of the story, which again I'm very disappointed by, and I don't want to drop Granblue. I'm not that upset with it, but I'm so disappointed that the show has just not grabbed me the way that the first one did with a lot of these arcs. The Vera arc was okay at best, but just didn't. It ended terribly. And this Fairy one, while it had a nice ending, I guess, the villain just wasn't interesting. There wasn't anything there to go after. So by the end of all this, we find that the ghost ship that had now stayed in the area, made people immortal, turned them into zombies, and then sucked them away eventually. It was all because of an immortality spell that was being activated by this guy. We still don't even know what the guy's name was, just this mad doctor, I guess. The idea is that he had to sacrifice lives to do it, and her father, Fairy's father for that matter, was the sacrifice, and it seems that maybe she was supposed to be sacrificed as well, or she intervened. She was given the immortality spell instead of this guy. So the guy escaped to Celeste, which was that ghost ship, and used it himself to grant him immortality by using the souls of people to keep his life alive. Again, just not a very interesting story. The only thing that really matters is by the time when Gran defeats it, and basically all the ghouls just die. Like all these zombified villagers die because they've been alive for over 100 years. So a good chunk of them are dead now. Although the way that they make it look like it seems possible that maybe it was every single one of them. Hard to tell. But the one thing we see at the end is that Fairy is actually related to Drong, which I was correct on thinking. What I was wrong about was that I didn't suspect the immortality thing. So in fact, Fairy is Drong's grandmother's sister. So it's his great aunt, I believe is how it would be called. But otherwise, I'm so annoyed that this show is just not being as fun as it was before. And I don't know if it's, since, their mobile game is just running on all cylinders at all times, so it's not like they really have to try that much. Maybe it's just lackadaisy attitude. Who knows? But these 8 episodes thus far, other than the first episode, which actually was the fun that I remembered from the show, just hasn't been. And I don't know what they can do to alleviate that. At this point, I'm not sure there is anything they can do to alleviate that. If you were to ask me if this show has a chance to be dropped, you could make a case for it that it's possible. I don't want to, but I feel like there is a potential that I could, because quite frankly, the show just isn't performing. It's not bad, but it's not doing anything. It's just existing. And for a show that I enjoyed as much as I did the first season, I'm left almost heartbroken that a show that I enjoyed is not even being remotely enjoyable. So we'll see what happens with that, I guess. But for the time being, they've got 4 episodes left, so they better get it moving. So then next on our list, we have High School Prodigies Have It Easy, Even in Another World. Good lord. I found my favorite girl. Episode 7, we see Shinobu and Elk, I believe, going into a village or a township, whichever you want to call it at this point, where everything seems fine on the surface, and then you realize that it's become a slave town where everyone's expected to smile, keep everything clean and tidy, and they aren't being fed properly, so a lot of them have bags under their eyes, they're getting like jaundice and shit like that. Like, it's gross as fuck. And they're also committing acts of cannibalism because it's the only way they can eat. And it's one of those episodes that's pretty crazy. However, the end of it just kind of blows all that darkness out of the water when they have Shinobu captured and chained up in her underwear for some reason. I guess the soldiers just felt like looking at something, but I guess the show wasn't R-rated enough to just go all the way, I guess. I don't know. I mean, they've had enough hot spring scenes that I don't see why they wouldn't have, but in this case, Shinobu just hanging there in her underwear, and my brain just went, oh shit, I think I just found the hottest girl on the show now. Because, good lord. Aside from that, they bring in a red-hair whip girl. I can't even think of what her name was right now. Shit, what was it? Jean, I think it was. She was alright, but I wasn't expecting much from her. And we finally get our first real bit of darkness at the end of that episode, following into episode 8, where Gustav, I believe, is the villain here. He throws that fire spear, and it almost is like a nuke in a way. Although, as we find out in episode 8, it actually isn't necessarily a nuke so much as it's like a fire zombie creator. So, like, people are attacked by fire zombies, and instead of being zombified, they're turned into just fire. Like, they're just turning into zombies that catch fire now. I don't know. But we went to full Kojima mode in this episode because they had one missile left, and they found out that if they hit the spear, they can end the entire thing. But the problem is, because of the flames surrounding it, they can't properly target the spear. So Aoi gets the idea, being a swordswoman and all, to run with the missile and take it herself into that spear. I didn't stutter. She ran with a missile. Sometimes shows maybe go a little too far. This would be one of those times. I mean, it was cool as fuck to watch, but my brain just went and shit itself, because I'm like, yeah, okay, I know they're prodigies, but she was a prodigy of swordsmanship, not speed of running. That she could keep up with a fucking missile. But again, it's anime. You just put away your disbeliefs there. You just have to understand that anything can happen, including big-breasted, kimono-wearing, katana-wielding girls who can just totally run with missiles that are probably shooting faster than anybody could ever hope to run in their life. But yeah, weapons solve every problem. It's like it's the most American show without being American, isn't it? Like, they've made so many guns now, and that's solving problems. They're using grenades now, as they do in episode 9, killing a bunch of horses. I'm sure PETA's not too happy about that. And apparently we had more missiles, so she deals with the two what's the term? Is it Marquises? Or is it just Marquis? I don't know. But they get more people on their side, and Shinobu and Jean are busy now dealing with Gustav, who, after the spear was broken, apparently it cut his arms off, I guess. So he was leaking blood like a motherfucker, like it was an Evil Dead movie. And he now just created arms out of fire, like he's just bursting into flames like a Namekian would when he's growing his arms back. Again, my suspension of disbelief has been long gone out the window. But Shinobu and Jean attack him. I fully suspected that Jean was going to die in this because, I mean, she's not a major character, so I just figured, okay, well, they've already got so many other characters to worry about at this point. What's one more? But they managed to, well, I guess, kill him by having him essentially kill himself by blowing the entire tower up. Although Shinobu basically just admits that, there's no way he's dead. That'd be too easy. There was a point, too, that was funny where Jean actually thought she killed him, and she's like, oh, did we get him? And even Shinobu, who's probably watched enough anime in her time in the real world, goes, oh, come on, why did you have to say that? And sure enough, he gets up. But yeah, that was a kind of a fun battle, and then everything just goes nuts at the end, because again, this is a very fan service happy show. Everybody's like taking a bit of a break, and apparently all the girls decide to go get booby massages. And I'm not even kidding. Like, that's pretty much what they're getting massaged. And naturally it ends up being a game of Ringo looking at everybody else and being like, well, this is bullshit. because every other girl on the show has massive tits and she doesn't. And of course, she really wants. Is it Tsukasa? That's the president in this show. Either way, whatever his name is, I'm pretty sure I got it right though. She's of course wanting that presidential dick, and it seems like Elf Girl there is taking that away from her. So she's like, well, this is bullshit. The only way that clearly I'm losing is bust size. So she just keeps getting more upset. And Shinobu's like, oh, okay, I'll show you a secret technique that helps them grow more. And she just basically just grabs her chest, because of course you do. And because if the guy looks remotely feminine, you have to throw him in these situations. This is the second time Akatsuki is just there too. He's getting a massage too, and it's just like, dude, if you're gonna go this full route, like, come on, give me some boy butt too. Like, stop being lazy on it by basically showing every other piece of the girls, but you're still hiding him, because clearly you're trying to make it seem like he's basically a girl too. He's basically Ringo with even flatter boobs. Like, that's what they're trying to play with him here. It's funny though, because every time that this happens, he's like, why am I here? And they're like, well, how he's supposed to protect you? And he's like, does she have to though? Like, at that point, he's like, dude, at this point, I don't know if he's saying it because he's embarrassed or because, like, he's like, dude, like, come on. Like, dude, just tell us if you're gay or not, because clearly you should be happy being in this situation. Look around you. God damn. But either way, like I said, it's a fun, over-the-top, fan-servicey show that is taking a bit of a dark turn in certain points. So it's kind of interesting that way. But, I mean, all in all, I again, like, this is a show that's not going to suddenly be like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a shit harem anime. I'm aware of what it is. It's a shit fan service, like, isekai harem anime. I know what it is. I know it's garbage. That's why I like it. Moving on to other trash harems. ORESUKI, Are You the Only One Who Loves Me? Speaking of swimsuit episodes from earlier, there's another swimsuit episode. So we had 2 on the same week, which was fun. The winner in this one, to me, was Asuka, or Asaka, A-S-A-K, I want to say Asuka. And that was the red-haired, like, pigtail-looking girl before she changed her hair and fucked it up. Because we don't need any more plain old, like, normal hair color girls in the show. So she kind of screwed that all up. Especially now with the other girl who's from the... Is it the tempura? Like, whatever, the crunchy food, that, like, the restaurant that she owns. She's also black hair. It's like, holy fuck, how many of these do we need? Like, you think Pansy is going to be a little bit annoyed that she's not unique at all now, other than the fact that she's got big tits, I guess. I guess that's it. Like, glasses and tits. That's all she's got left going for her. The 7th episode was just meh. Like, it was a swimsuit episode again. You're not going to take much with it. All the girls were boring. Like, Himawari just wasn't... Himawari had a chance, and she was boring. I wasn't surprised that Pansy was a little reserved. They gave her the skirt, although her breasts were popping out like a motherfucker in that top. And then Cosmos was just eh. Her type isn't really mine to begin with, so that didn't do much. Episode 8, obviously starting to run through with Yoki, I think her name is. There was a part of me that thought that she was going to be a guy early on. Like, I had that thought. I'm thinking, okay, well, if we had so many people in this harem, there's got to be the girl that turns out to be a guy or the guy that turns out to be a girl and vice versa. So when she came in, I'm thinking, oh, she's probably a dude. Like, the voice was perfect enough that I'm like, okay, I'm slightly worried that I'm wrong here. And then basically they showed she had a bit of a bust. I'm like, well, fuck. Okay, well, there goes that guess. That goes way out the window. That episode wasn't much. It was more just suckering him in to work for her. Episode 9, however, is when things go absolutely over the hill here. So this is complete notation here because there's so much to go through here. So this is reading straight from my notes here. Jorah continues to be a massive prick, and Panji sees right through him. She knows that he is aware that everyone around him is a shining star, and he's nothing to speak of. He is, in his mind, a background character of a harem anime. That's what he feels like it is. He continues to brush her off and finally lashes out at her, and she's like, fine, if you don't want to deal with me, then I won't bother. And she leaves. He feels like shit. Some random dude who we haven't seen since kind of helps him out. That just is a thing. I'm assuming that maybe he comes into play again later. I'm not sure. It just seemed a little out of nowhere. He finally does succeed at getting the money for buying a new copy of the book, but he finds out that a girl had bought that book from him. Turns out it was Himawari, and he fucking lashes out like a motherfucker at her. And she lashes back because she's obviously pissed at him for being mad at her because she just wanted to help. But he stays on her and just goes, no, fuck you. You need to be focusing on your own shit. You got a tennis tournament to go for. Everybody's looking for you to win this thing. And you're taking time out to deal with my shit. Let me take care of my shit. And even she finally loses it and just breaks down and cries, says she knows, but she just wanted to help. She just felt like she needed to help him. And he finally relaxes, accepts that, you know what, that's my bad, I lost it, but, you know, he's not going to hide the fact that he's still upset at her for what he did, but he's also upset at himself for lashing out the way that he did, so they do make up. She asks him the next day if he likes someone, and he says no, although I think he's more dodging because he doesn't want to admit that he likes Panji, even though that he hates her at the same time. But she says she actually has a yes to her question and kisses him on the cheek. So now she's part of the harem. So she's officially in the harem. We also find out that the book that he had borrowed from Panji had a bookmark into it. And she asked him a question after he'd finished reading the book. It says, well, do you have an answer to the question? And nobody else knows what she's talking about. And the bookmark was basically saying, hey, if I was in a lot of trouble, would you help me? Now, he doesn't outright say yes, but in his own way, he basically says that. And, of course, she's very happy about it. And then towards the end of the episode, he gets confronted at work and saying that he needs to accept, and I think it was it Yoki or Tsubaki? I can't think of who it was now. I think it was the girl who works at the restaurant. But she said, look, like, you need to accept that you're not a background character, but you're actually the glue that holds everyone together. And he kind of has that moment where he's like, you know what? Maybe you're right. And that leaves us 3 more episodes now. So this show is still as good as it's been for a little bit while, although this last episode definitely hit the emotional value a little bit more. Otherwise, the fan service was okay at best in the swimsuit episode. I don't particularly like this restaurant girl either. I think it's getting to a point now where there's just too many girls. And I know in a harem that should never be the case, but I think the way that this specific story is running, it's not helping that they keep adding more in this late, because it now brings a little bit too more. I mean, we got the journalist girl who's in there. There's still Asuka, the girl that was bullying him early on and is now into him. There's like 6 vying for him. And normally this isn't a problem, but the way that this story has been running, it's not just a straight up everybody's hitting on him all episode. There's actual real tangible storylines to this. So when you do that with 6 girls, it's very difficult because you can't expect all 6 of them to have a legitimate storyline to go with it. I mean, at this point, Himawari and Panji are the ones that have actual stories to go with it. Otherwise, the other 4 are kind of on the out looking in, and it's not working the way that it should. So, I mean, we'll see what happens in the last 3 episodes, but man, like, this one is just quite not working. And I'm not sure what they can do to alleviate that bit. But as a show itself, the comedy is fine, the story is fine. It's still good, but they're definitely holding the show back by getting a little too complicated with all the extra characters. Okay, 3 shows left. Radiant. This finally started to pick up. So Seth finally snaps. He's able to at least get out of the situation that he's in, where he was captured and being attacked by that Spectre nemesis. So it turns out that the old dude, what's his name now? Is it Mir, I think? Yeah, the guy with the beard that looks like he's also a person wearing a Speedo, which was fucking a little bit too creepy for me. But it seems like he's far more important than we thought by the end of this. Melly also finally steps up. Her and Okaho both recognize Seth as the Spectre and realize they need to go help. And in the 8th episode, Melly does finally like alleviate all the tension between the two. They start to talk about this spectral world that you can go through. It's like, so you can talk to people in their minds. It's like seeing their inner thoughts sort of deal. Melly's able to go through that and be able to talk to him and kind of get him to commit that, you know what, yeah, what's going on with you is scary as shit, but you'll be able to do this if we do this together. We'll get through this. And it just finally works for the upteenth time. Very cliche. Episode 9 pretty much just, again, setting up a potential villain here. I still think it's the dominatrix queen looking bitch there, the gigantic girl. Although it's tough because she seems to also really like Okaho and is very girly, so I wonder if maybe she's just an idiot or if she's just playing Okaho. It's hard to tell at this point. We discovered that the forest is basically like, if you're going back to Dragon Ball Z, the forest is like the hyperbolic time chamber. So time is not the same there. In fact, time doesn't exist at all in that forest. You know, if you leave the forest after being there for 10 years, it's still like a second in the real world. So basically, the forest is the hyperbolic time chamber, and Mir has become Mr. Popo. Like, that's basically what I got out of this episode. He also mentions that Yaga actually asked him to look after Seth, but it seems like there's a little bit more going on here. But the entire episode is concentrated on Seth being able to defeat his shadow. That's what Mir keeps trying to get him to do, is you have to be able to beat this thing that's controlling you when you get too powerful and you snap. And he tries, fails, so Mir has to deal with that again. Heals him up, tries to get him to do it one more time, but this time he's going to watch from within that dimension. And he sees that indeed there is something not only trying to take him, but trying to kill Mir while he's in there. And he's not sure what it is. He can't tell what it is and what this Pyodon guy has put in Seth, even if it was intended to actually help him or not. It may just be something he's using to get control of this power. But we don't know for sure. So a lot of mystery to this show, but it didn't really go any further than that. This show it's definitely not been nearly as interesting as the first season was, and I think it's because they did play a little bit more on things like racism and things that make it very easy to get involved with. Although I think that season was also 2 seasons long in terms of showtime. So, you know, they've definitely got some room to play with. But as of right now, it's definitely needed to be a little better. I wish they would kind of get going on who the villain is here, because there's only so much mystery and training montages I can go through before it's like, all right, let's go. I'm hanging in there, but let's go. Otherwise, I mean, show's still doing just fine. It's not running away with anything, but it's definitely doing its job, at least keeping me interested in what happens next. It's just a matter of they better pull that trigger soon before I get too bored of it. Second last here, welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun. All this show proved to me is that my favorite character of this entire season might be Emily, or Amory, as it's done here. And this is where I think the translation issues come. Now remember, I don't think her name is Amory, because I don't think that's actually how it's supposed to be pronounced. But the problem is, in Japan, the L sound is more of an R sound. So in the case of this name, I don't think Emily is meant to be Emery, but I think it's how the voice actors are portraying that, because they're probably reading it and hearing and seeing that R sound in the L spot of where the letters are, so they're probably thinking it's supposed to be Emery rather than Emily. So either way, doesn't matter how the hell they pronounce it, she's still my favorite goddamn character on the show, and maybe the entire season of all these shows, just because she is the over-the-top, I'm a tough, badass student council president that can punch anybody in the face if I want to, and you can't touch me. But I'm keeping a shit ton of manga here, and I am the biggest, like... I was genuinely surprised that the manga that she was reading wasn't yaoi. I was almost positive it was, but I guess if she wanted Iruma to read it to her, it made more sense that it was just a really shitty rom-com novel. So I guess that's the trade-off. So she's not completely lost, but who knows? If she's ever able to find more manga and she finds boy love, I think that girl's going to be completely fucked. As if she isn't already by, you know, getting freaked out anytime that Iruma does anything remotely close to what that manga does. But she's absolutely killing it right now. And I hope that we see more of her. Although finally, as episode 8 came to a close, they started pushing her back a bit, because they obviously need to bring everybody else back in. She does also set Iruma in motion in terms of he needs something to do, honestly. So she says, hey, you don't have to go all the way here, but why don't you just work on getting up 1 rank? Why don't you just become a bet? And that gets his attention. During episode 8, however, we had the treat that was Clara trying to be sexy, which was really, really funny. The over-the-top makeup, the perfume, the sexy poses that she would try to do. That was just a great second half to an episode. And for her to actually succeed at raising her points a little bit is mystifying and yet kind of entertaining regardless. The 9th episode was kind of boring, I'm not going to lie. If there was an episode that I actually really didn't like, this was one of them. Because it was basically all just focused on dodgeball. And that's cool and all, but to be completely honest, that episode honestly didn't really push anything that was that much fun. Like, it was just him freaking out and trying to learn how to catch a ball. There weren't really any good jokes there. Nobody really pushed forward. I mean, if sure you want to make the case that Iruma is finally, getting away from just trying to run from everything, he's able to push himself forward a little bit, but that's not why I like Iruma. I don't like Iruma because he's able to overcome. I like him because he is such a pushover. And for him to start catching a ball now instead of just trying to dodge every time somebody throws shit at him, it's kind of annoying because it kind of takes away from that personality that he has of he just wants to be able to survive. And here he is now trying to actually make a statement, which seems like almost an opposite of what he's supposed to be doing. But either way, I still love the show. Like, I'm not going to kid myself here and tell you that, oh, the show's bad now. It's just that episode was much weaker than the usual ones. So to finish off, we have We Never Learned Bokuben, and good lord, there was some fan service on this episode. Rizu basically ran episode 7 through the entire university run of Yuiga and Sekijo battling for who can avoid her the best, because both of them feel like the other should have a lot more time alone with her. Rizu at some point gets drunk on not drinking, because of course she does. She ends up going into a maid bar and the maid cafe that oh my god, why am I blanking on her name? The purple hair girl. That works. I'm blanking on her name right now. But she ends up in that cafe. She, of course, puts the uniform on. That's not going to work with her bust at all. And that's her episode. And that was fun. Next episode, we finally see that Yuiga has his weakness, and that being gym class. Shocking. The nerdy boy can't do anything in gym class. Shocking. What's more shocking, though, is they had Mafuyu in a fucking one piece. And I'm like, oh, shit. They keep pushing it that Mafuyu's my girl. And the longer the show goes on, it's making it real tough because I really like Rizu, but Mafuyu's just that good. But she also has a little bit of a shower scene with Uruka. That was fan servicey as hell, and that did not get my attention at all. I wasn't looking and trying to screenshot stuff. No, I don't do that. But the core of that episode, aside from getting Yuiga to learn how to fucking swim, because there's always got to be somebody in an anime that can't swim. That just seems to be like the guarantee of a show. If there's going to be a pool involved, somebody can't swim. But the core of it is that Uruka is getting the chance to study abroad, and specifically Australia. And you figure that she's going to not want to do it because she still wants to be close to Yuiga. But when he does, while she's under the table, because again, she can't hear it directly from the guy, she has to hide. When he says that, if he was going to deal with somebody who was in a long distance relationship, like he'd do his best because he would want that girl to follow whatever dream she has. And I get Uruka to be like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna go for it. And that's what they push there. So that was a fun episode for her. And then we finally get a Furuhashi storyline. It seems like they finally decided, you know what, it's her time to make at least a decent push at maybe having an attraction to Yuiga here. And it doesn't quite happen, and you still are left to wonder if she does have any feelings for him, but they definitely push it that, hey, they're going all out to try to make it happen. The whole storyline being that the father, who I believe in episode 7 is a teacher at the university when Rizu goes there for a math thing, and is a wizard, and he goes nuts trying to recruit her. Turns out that he is Furashi's father and has told her on several times to not pursue math because she's not good at it. Stop. So she's being like what Mafuyu has been with her. And it seems that mother was a prodigy, a bigger one than all of them, and passed away before she was able to really do anything. And there is a laptop that they find that has her thesis. And he was trying to access it, failed, and there was one more login attempt left. And they find that computer while he's out. And I didn't like the fact that the episode ended without them seeing what's in the folder. They just kind of end abruptly on it. And I was kind of annoyed by that, because I figured that was what they were going to run with at the end. Now, I would imagine episode 9 should run with that, but it seemed like a very weird place to pick as a cliffhanger. But it is nice that in 3 episodes, you basically had all 3 main girls getting their run. So Rizu had a run in 7, Uruka had a run in 8, and Furashi's had a run in 9. And Mafuyu had a bit in there in episode 8, but realistically, that was all her. The only girl that didn't really get a run was purple hair girl that I can't believe I'm blanking on the name of right now. But she did get a really awesome foot massage the episode prior to this, so I guess it all works in the end for her. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. So again, 3 episodes have gone by. Most shows have held up pretty well. Clear-cut winners. Dr. Stone's still at number 1. Ascendance of a Bookworm is number 2. The number 3 spot is where it gets trickier. I would be inclined to give Bokuben that just because it's been a fantastic harem now for 2 seasons. ORESUKI's been okay. High School Prodigies has been good for a different reason. But realistically, like Ahiru no Sora is probably... You know what? I'd probably put them at 4, and I think I'm right that Bokuben would be 3rd. 5th, I'd maybe give to High School Prodigies because it's a really good shit fan service anime, so... But otherwise, it's been a good season. And as we get to our last podcast in a few weeks, probably at the end of the year, we'll be able to cap this off. And along with that, we will take the best of each season and see what they pair up with. So with that being said, that's going to do it for this episode. So another hour has gone past here on the Church of Weeb. I hope you enjoyed it. So if you are listening to this on YouTube, you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with all your friends, and comment below. If you're listening to this on any of the audio services that it is available on, if you can rate the show, please do so. Otherwise, just share the podcast with all your friends. And don't forget, if you want to ask me any questions or if you want to make comments about some of the shows that you're watching, maybe anything that I've missed, or just straight up just telling me that I am a trash weeb, and that's okay. You can email me at askcsradical@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter at CSRadical. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for listening to the Church of Weeb, and we will see you on the final episode of this season where we see how every show has ended. So, see you next time.